We are now beginning the meeting, and good afternoon. Welcome to meeting number 5 of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room or remotely using the Zoom application. I want to take this opportunity to remind all participants of this meeting that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Given the current COVID situation and the health authority recommendations, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy of January 28, 2022, the following is recommended for all those attending the meeting in person. Anyone with symptoms should participate by Zoom and not attend the meeting in person. Everyone must maintain 2 meters physical distance, whether seated or standing. Everyone must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room. It is recommended in the strongest possible terms that members wear their masks at all times, including when seated. Non-medical masks, which provide better clarity over cloth masks, are available in the room. Everyone present must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the hand sanitizer at the room entrance. The committee rooms are cleaned before and after each meeting. To maintain this, everyone is encouraged to clean surfaces such as the desk, chair, and microphone with the provided disinfectant wipes when vacating or taking a seat.
Enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank members in advance for their cooperation. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, January 31st, 2022, the committee is meeting to study the mandate letter of the Minister of Transport. Appearing before us today, honourable colleagues, we have the Honourable Omar Al-Gabra, Minister of Transport. We have Michael Keenan, Deputy Minister. From the Department of Transport, we have Arun Tangaraj, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Associate Deputy Minister, Aaron McCrory, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Safety and Security, and Serge Benjamin, Assistant Deputy Minister of Policy. Minister, I know that you have a hard stop today at 4:30, so without further ado, I'd like to turn the microphone over to you for your opening remarks. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm really grateful for the invitation to come back to this committee. I want to first congratulate you, Mr. Chair, on your election as chair, and to extend a warm welcome to the new members of this committee. I think we have several new members of this committee. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. J'ai hâte de travailler avec vous.
I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
By noting that I'm joining you today from the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. I'm pleased to be joined by officials, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, and I want to take a moment to thank Transport Canada's officials for their incredible hard work over the last 2 years, and particularly over the last several weeks because of the current situation that we're in. And I'm delighted that they are here offering support and ready to answer members' questions. Mr. Chair, it is an honor to speak today about the priorities outlined in my recent mandate letter from the Prime Minister. But first, let me address the action our government has taken this week. The illegal blockades across our country were and are putting Canadian jobs at risk and are having a significant impact on our economy. Les blocages mettent en péril.
These blockages are having an impact on our economy.
Blockade affected around $400 million in trade each and every day. The Coutts blockade affected around $50 million in trade each and every day. The Emerson Crossing blockade affected around $75 million in trade each day. And a significant number of owners had to close their shops and workers' shifts were canceled. Over the last few days, I heard from farmers, auto manufacturers, grocers, truckers, and many small businesses, including, by the way, from conservative MPs on behalf of their constituents about the damage these illegal blockades have been causing. This is not how we do things in Canada. People have a right to protest, and our government will always defend those rights. However, people don't have a right to break the law and hold Canada and Canadians hostage. And our government is acting to enforce the law. Our message to the occupiers is clear. Go home. Mr. Chair, we have always said that we will adjust our border measures based on public health recommendations. So I want to talk to you a bit about our travel measures. This is why on Tuesday, we announced as of February 28th, the ban on international flights at all airports that would normally receive international flights will be lifted. This is great news for communities like Windsor, London, Fort McMurray, Moncton, and many more. By receiving international flights, we will support local tourism, create good jobs, and grow our economy. Travelers will now have the option of using a COVID-19 rapid antigen test result or a molecular test result to meet the pre-departure requirement. On arrival, testing will be eased for fully vaccinated travelers. Those selected for random testing will no longer have to quarantine while waiting for results. And children under 12 years old traveling with fully vaccinated adults will continue to be exempt from quarantine. As I said, we have always made our decisions based on science, and this announcement was a reflection of the progress we have made against the current Omicron variant. Canada's border measures will remain flexible and adaptable. Now to discuss my mandate letter. Je vais maintenant parler de...
I will now speak about my mandate letter.
I'm committed to delivering on all of the priorities, but in the interest of time, I'll focus on the work being done in a few key areas. First, vaccination. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to significantly affect the transportation sector here in Canada and around the world. My highest priority as Transport Minister is an efficient and safe transportation system. And for that to happen, we need to do everything possible to put the pandemic behind us. And we know that vaccination is our best tool to end this pandemic. In response, Transport Canada has introduced a multi-layered approach, which includes mandatory vaccination for all travelers on interprovincial train, commercial flights, cruise ships, and other federally regulated vessels. We've also mandated COVID-19 vaccination for federally regulated transportation sector workers. I want to thank all our workers in the transportation sector who have worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic, delivered for Canadians, and have rolled up their sleeves to get vaccinated and keep our communities safe. Now, supply chain. Globally, supply chains are under pressure on a number of fronts. This is not a uniquely Canadian challenge. It is a global one, a global health crisis. We know the supply chain is a top of mind for Canadians, and I can assure you that it is also a top of mind for our government. All things considered, Canada has been relatively successful in keeping goods moving, but no system is perfect. And global supply demands issue, labor shortages, compounded by recent extreme weather events, have affected us in Canada. That is why we are working to make our supply chain even stronger and to ensure that what Canadians need reaches their households as quickly as possible. Just over 2 weeks ago, I hosted a national supply chain summit with Ministers Bibeau, Ng, Champagne, Qualtrough, and O'Regan, where we met with industry, shippers, and organizations that play a role in Canada's supply chain to address challenges, develop strategies, and determine next steps. Following that, I was pleased to announce that we will create a new supply chain task force to help provide additional advice to me and our government, and a new $50 million call for proposals under the National Trade Corridors Fund. The conversations we had at the summit were not the end. The work will continue and follow-up sessions are being organized. We are also in the final stages of our port modernization review, which I'm committed to completing in due course, and which will help us position Canada's ports to respond to supply chain pressures and contribute to economic growth. Now to the air sector. Mr. Chair, it's clear that the pandemic has impacted the air sector particularly hard. La pandémie a eu
The pandemic has impacted the air sector very hard.
The government of Canada has made over $11 billion available to support Canada's air sector. This includes infrastructure and operational fund at airports, rent relief, support for air carrier services to remote and northern communities, and financing for air carriers to help sustain financial viability and ensure refunds for Canadians and the restoration of regional services. And as we work toward the safe restart of a competitive and a viable air sector, I'm taking steps to rebuild public confidence in the sector, including helping to ensure efficient and affordable travel options, strengthening air passenger rights, and helping the air sector adopt a new advanced technology. Now on to environmental measures. Mr. Chair, the Prime Minister has also asked me to support Canada's transition to net zero. We know reducing emissions in the transportation sector is key to reaching our climate goals. That is why we are offering incentives to make zero-emission vehicles more affordable and accessible to Canadians. By the end of just this last January, over 130,000 Canadians and Canadian businesses have benefited from the incentive for zero-emission vehicles. I also emphasize the need for ZEV adoption at COP26 with our international partners. Transport Canada is also developing a strategy to reduce road freight, air, and marine emissions. This includes working with our Clydebank Declaration partners to establish green marine shipping corridors. And I'm thrilled to say that the Port of Montreal and the Port of Antwerp recently signed an agreement to create the first green shipping lane in the world. Mr. Chair, the high-frequency rail project that I want to discuss with you now is going to transform passenger rail service between Quebec City and Toronto. It will allow Canadians to get to their families faster, better connect our businesses while reducing road congestion and providing a low-emission travel alternative. We are working to launch the procurement process as soon as possible. Nous travaillons pour lancer.
We are working to launch the procurement process as soon as possible.
In closing, Mr. Chair, the measures outlined in my mandate letter reflect the Government of Canada's commitment to delivering transportation policies and programs that promote safe, secure, efficient, and environmentally responsible transportation. As always, I'm grateful to the committee for its input on transportation issue, and I look forward to continuing our work together. With that, Mr. Chair, I conclude, and I'm ready for the honorable members' questions. I would be pleased to answer them. Je suis prêt à répondre.
I am prepared to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, Minister.
To begin our first round of questioning, We have 6 minutes for Ms. Landsman. Ms. Landsman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Minister, for joining us at committee, and to all of the officials, which we'll get to speak to in the next hour. I know how much work it is, and particularly when you are so busy. I know that a committee appearance showing up puts a lot of people to work. So I'll get right into it with on the questions of mandates. I know, Minister, you talked about this at the very beginning, and I know today Canadians learned, or at least I learned, that you granted some exemptions on the trucker mandate, and I commend you for that. And in your statements over the past months, you continue to claim that vaccine mandates, and particularly the cross-border ones, are based in science, are being implemented to protect Canadians. So I just wanted to know if you're able to provide the committee with any study or data that you're confidently basing these statements on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my colleague, I want to first congratulate her. I've done that privately, but I want to do it publicly on her appointment as a transportation critic, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with her and her colleagues. Mr. Chair, vaccines save lives. And I wasn't honestly expecting to get a question to provide evidence to that, but I'd be more than happy to provide evidence that vaccines save lives.
Mr. Minister, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. It's not, the question is not about whether vaccines save lives. It's just, what data are you using to implement the cross-border trucking mandate? We know that vaccines save lives. Just what is the positivity rate? Maybe I make this easier for you. What is the positivity rate before the mandate, and maybe the positivity rate after, so we know whether it's working?
Great. I'm happy to answer that question. And if you agree with me that vaccines save lives, then I'm sure you agree with me that you want to save the lives of truckers and transportation workers. I'm sure you agree with me that you want to reduce hospitalization rates among truck drivers and other transportation workers. I'm sure you agree with me that the lower the infection rates and hospitalization rates and death rates among truckers and other transportation workers will be good for our supply chains, will be good for our economy. So again, if the evidence is available and persuasive that vaccines save life and reduce hospitalization, this is all the evidence that all of us need to support.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. I know that my time is limited. So the department is making decisions not based on any studies, but general hospital rates. I want to know, Mr. You talked a little bit about in the past that regulations were being created, or mandate was being created on cross country interprovincial trucking mandate. Can you tell me what day those will be announced?
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. Again, vaccines save lives, and what we have said is that we are studying the formulation of regulations for all federally regulated sectors. And right now, there's consultations ongoing with all sectors. I'm unable to give anybody a date yet because the consultations are ongoing.
So I understand that I understand that the pandemic is dynamic, but is there any scenario planning about when restrictions might be lifted, or what the appropriate thresholds are? I just want to know whether these restrictions are actually being studied based on data, or frankly, the notion that vaccines save lives, which I think we all agree with, or is it public opinion?
Mr. Chair, we've said from the beginning, our public health measures are derived based on science and data, and they're done to protect the health and safety of Canadians, but they're also done to protect our economy. We've also said that these measures are temporary, and we have all the willingness to continue to adjust them as the public health situation changes. And we've demonstrated that in the past, and we have demonstrated that this week. So yes, I can't wait for all of these measures to be lifted, but it's also responsible of me to tell Canadians that we don't know when these measures will be lifted. They'll be lifted when the time is right and when our public health experts tell us that it's safe to do so.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I actually just want to move to travel restrictions. What I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to see if the committee can access any of the data by which you are making decisions on, or which you are claimed to be making decisions on. So I just wanted to know the advice that you received on travel recommendations. My understanding is that the experts within that your own government listens to, in the last set of restrictions, the recommendation was a level 2 travel advisory, but you implemented a level 3 travel advisory. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, maybe my honourable member, let me remind Canadians and everyone else who's watching us. 2 months ago, we were at the height, or almost 3 months ago now, we were at the height or at the beginning of the Omicron wave. We have just discovered, and scientists around the world were alerting us to this new variant that is highly transmissible. And there was a lot of other information that was still missing about Omicron and the impact that it'll have on public health. I remember Conservatives colleagues in the House of Commons demanding stricter border measures to manage the arrival of Omicron to Canada. And what we did then, we imposed additional strict measures to purely protect the health and safety of Canadians, to slow down the importation of Omicron, but to also advise Canadians about the risk associated with traveling internationally when this new variant is spreading everywhere and carrying a lot of unpredictability with it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Landsman. Thank you, Minister. Next round of questions is 6 minutes. We go to Mr. Badaway. Mr. Badaway, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Alghabra, for being here with us today. Minister, multimodal trade corridors are an important part of our supply chains. As a member of Parliament for Niagara Centre, can the Minister comment on how important the Niagara region, a Great Lakes multimodal trade corridor region which has the Welland Canal running right through the middle of it, is an integral part to strengthening our nation's international trade performance?
Mr. Chair, let me thank my honourable colleague from Niagara Centre for his work. He is the previous chair of this committee, and he did a marvelous job in chairing the committee. And I'm glad that he continues to be a member of this committee. And I want to also echo what he said. He's absolutely right. He's been a vocal champion of implementing policies and investments that will help improve our supply chains, particularly those issues that touch upon his community and enhance the ability for his community to be a powerful economic engine in the region. So he's absolutely right, and I look forward to continuing to work with him on strengthening the supply chain, particularly for his region.
Thank you, Minister. And with that, the Great Lakes in particular are an economic engine. They annually move 19.8 billion in goods, support 238,000 jobs, and generate 45 billion in commerce. Components that are critical to post-COVID-19 economic recovery efforts. Minister, can you comment on how the Great Lakes can be leveraged to create fluidity, eliminating bottlenecks, being more environmentally friendly in the movement of trade, and contributing to our country's post-COVID-19 economic recovery?
Great question. Look, we are all now talking about the challenges that our supply chains are facing and the stress that they're enduring. And in our discussions about how we can increase fluidity and increase redundancy and resilience to our supply chains, we need to look at other smart options for transporting goods. And Great Lakes offer an excellent channel or venue for products and goods to be transported in an environmentally safe way. So we will continue to look at options to utilize this option to ensure that we enhance the resilience of our supply chain.
Thank you, Minister. And I have to comment on some of the discussion that you had with the member opposite, and I guess primarily having to do with multimodal trade corridors with road, rail, air, water. And frankly, because of mandates, almost 90% of truckers are vaccinated. And we also know that the mandates in other transport modes, like shipping, for example, led to very high rates of vaccination for workers. And that's the evidence. Now, with that said, it gave us the ability to ensure that our supply chains and the movement of trade, not only throughout the Great Lakes, but globally, were done so. And people, or with people that were healthy, and not only healthy within their own environments, vis-a-vis a ship or in a truck or with CBSA agents or people that they were bringing supplies to, but also the broader population. So with that, Minister, can you comment on how important it is that had transpired and that it continues to transpire in terms of vaccinations and, of course, those modes of transportation being healthy to then therefore keep healthy our supply chains?
Thank you for the question. And let me start off by saying thank you to our truckers. Canadian truckers have and continue to serve Canadians with professionalism, with dedication, with pride. They delivered vaccines and other critical equipment, produce and manufactured equipment and parts for our economy, for Canadians during a very challenging time. But they also understood how important it was to get vaccinated for themselves and for their loved ones and for their coworkers. That's why 90% of truckers are fully vaccinated. That's why truckers have distanced themselves from these illegal blockades and illegal occupation. Truckers are working as we speak, delivering for Canadians. And I also want to thank all workers in the transportation sectors. Our transportation sector is critical to our economy, is critical to our security. And if you speak to other sectors, they tell you one of the most challenging issues today is absenteeism because of infection rates or because of hospitalization or because of challenges that are caused by COVID. So workers in the transportation sector stepped up to protect themselves, to protect their loved ones, to protect their coworkers, but also to protect our supply chains.
Now, Minister, I've heard great support from, for example, the Seafarers International Union, representing all the workers on the Great Lakes, from the trucker associations, all in support of the direction that we took. What are you hearing out there?
You're absolutely right. I've been meeting with all stakeholders, unions, employers, and people understand the importance of vaccination. You mentioned Seafarers and the Canadian Trucking Alliance and others. Teamsters, they all were vocal in first recognizing the importance of vaccination, second in condemning illegal blockades and illegal occupations that does nothing to advance the priorities of truckers and other transportation workers. I will continue to meet with all stakeholders, by the way, including ones who disagree with us. This is how we do things in Canada. This is my job, and this is our job as elected officials, to speak with all stakeholders, with all of our workers, with all of our industries, to hear directly from them about their priorities, and our government will always be there to support them.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Badaway. Mr. Barcelou-Duval, à vous la parole.
Mr. Barcelou-Duval, you have 6 minutes. Please go ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Minister, I don't remember whether in your remarks you talked about the Lac Mégantic bypass, but I know it's in your mandate. There have been consultations involving you and the department, and Canadian Pacific has presented documents, and the idea is to multiply by 4 the speed of the trains and to double the length of the trains. And yet we talk about safety and security and reconciliation with the public. Are you still interested in the safety and security, and do you agree with increasing the length and speed of the trains?
And I want to thank my colleague for his question. Lac-Mégantic bypass is a priority of mine. I have been working with my colleagues, with Minister Bibeau, including the Conservative member who represents that area and other MPs, and including my bloc critic, on making sure that we do it right. The community has suffered because of the tragedy, and we need to be there to ensure that the bypass is built as quickly as possible, but also that it's done with the highest standard of safety and consideration for local communities. And I've been meeting with stakeholders. I've been talking to CP. We want to make sure that this bypass, first of all, is done with the consent of communities, that we have the support of the community, and that it's done safely.
Merci pour votre réponse.
Thank you for that answer. It doesn't quite answer my question. I would like to have heard a commitment regarding safety and security, and also about the timelines. Your government has made a commitment to put this into effect by 2023. There are a lot of things that are not getting ready at that speed. We know that some of the property hasn't been bought yet, and I don't see that this can actually happen in time. There are a lot of steps in the process not yet. So are you still aiming for 2023 to have this in operation?
Chair, and let me repeat to be very clear. We are committed to building this bypass safely and as quickly as possible. To your question, it's true that the process continues to require consultations and discussions, particularly with landowners, where the bypass will have to pass. And I'm relieved to say and delighted to say that all landowners who are impacted have received offers from the Government of Canada. There's ongoing now negotiation on the acquisition of that land or the piece of land that are required. And we are committed to starting building this bypass as quickly as possible. We're aiming to start this spring, late spring, or early summer, and we want to complete it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci pour votre réponse.
Thank you for that answer. If I have a message for you, it would be that people are not necessarily determined to have this done by 2023, but they want to make sure that it keeps moving forward. That's the main thing. And I think it would be useful and important for your government to be very transparent. And if 2023 is not possible, then you should be clear about when you think it will be done, because that is better for the public. It's more encouraging for them. Otherwise, they become cynical about the project. We also need guarantees that all safety and security aspects will be covered, because if that isn't clear, then people have more questions. I want to also talk about another project, and that is the Via Rail project that was announced with great fanfare by your government just before the last election last fall. And a number of journalists mentioned that frequency was more to be found in the number of announcements than in the number of trains. So I would like to know where your government is really going with this. You were going to have a call for tenders in the fall, but that hasn't happened. So what is going on with that project?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank my colleague first for his thoughtful comment on how we need to proceed with Lac-Mégantic, and I agree with him totally. On the high-frequency rail, our government, and I mentioned that in my opening remarks, remain solidly committed behind it. And very soon, you're going to see an announcement for phase 2 in the procurement process, where Canadians will get to see what we are doing next. So stay tuned. I understand that Canadians are anxious to see this happen. this is going to be the largest infrastructure project in modern Canada's history. It needs to be done right. We need to make sure that we do our homework. But I can assure you and everyone who's watching, we remain solidly committed, and stay tuned for good news in the near term.
Je suis content, j'espère que ça va.
I'm very pleased. I hope that that will indeed happen. But you can understand the skepticism. I know that I'm just about out of time, so I have one last question. I'm sorry, Mr. Barcelou-Duval, your time is up. Thank you.
Next round of questions goes to Mr. Bachrach. Mr. Bachrach, you have 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Chair, and thank you, Minister, for appearing today. It's good to see you again. I'd like to begin my questions in Northwest British Columbia. Now, it's been almost exactly 1 year since the tugboat, the Injanika, sank in rough weather just south of Kitimat, taking the lives of Charlie Craig and Troy Pearson. And in that year, there have been no answers for the families of these two men. There have been no answers about what happened to their loved ones, and there have been no answers about what this government is doing to ensure the safety of mariners who go to work every single day on our seas. Now, my question for you, and I'd like you to address, in your answer, to address Judy Carlick Pearson and Genevieve Craig, the mother and wife of the two men that died in this tragic accident. If you could address them and tell them when they are going to get answers as to what happened and what you are doing to ensure the safety of mariners on our coast.
Thank you for the question. This is an extremely difficult situation, and let me first start off by offering my condolences to the family. I can't even imagine how challenging, how difficult and painful this has been for the family. And I'm grateful that they remain committed not only to getting answers, but also to ensuring that others don't go through what their family member went through. First of all, let me assure you that the investigation remains ongoing, and that Fisheries and Oceans, the Coast Guard, are the lead on this. And I'm looking forward as well to the findings of that investigation. But on Transport Canada's side, we have been working hard to strengthen the safety of our tugboat regulations. We've been consulting, and we have contacting all small tug owners directly to inform them about the new compliance program that we've implemented. So, Mr. Chair, I want to assure you and my honorable colleague that we are very much committed to the safety of tugboat operators and ensuring that everyone has the highest level of safety followed.
Minister, Genevieve Craig, the mother of Charlie Craig, has reached out to you on multiple occasions and asked to meet with you, not about the investigation into the incident, but to share her thoughts on what can be done to improve the safety of the industry that her son worked in. Have you responded to Ms. Craig, and have you accepted her invitation to meet?
Thank you for this question. I am always open to meeting with Canadians. There's an ongoing investigation right now, but I very much open to receiving ideas and input and feedback about how we can, under Transport Canada, continue to strengthen our regulations and our rules to improve safety for tugboat operators.
Now, Minister, your government still has contracts with Wainwright Marine, the company that these two men were working for when they died. In fact, that same company was involved in another incident just a few months later in which one of their ships ran aground. Now, have you reviewed the contracts with Wainwright? And I note that the International Transport Workers Federation has asked your government to suspend its contracts with Wainwright until it is satisfied that safety standards are being upheld. Will you heed their calls, and have you reviewed the contract?
I will, as I said, I'm looking forward to the investigation and the findings of that investigation. I think it's really important that it's done, but I can assure you, I am extremely sensitive to safety and to ensuring that tugboat operators are operating with the highest level of safety.
Now, Minister, shifting to a different topic, when your predecessor, Mr. Garneau, appeared before committee over a year ago, he assured us several times that the Canada Transportation Agency was an independent body that operated at arm's length from the government. And yet we just recently received redacted emails that show that on March 18th, in an email from Colin Stacey, this is one of your department officials, he indicated that, quote, Air Transat are telling us they are getting pressure from creditors who are pushing on the airlines for cash. They will request that we officially let them provide vouchers to passengers instead of providing them cash because they literally do not have enough cash to give refunds. This is a department official essentially lobbying the CTA and doing the bidding of Canada's big airlines. Then on March 23rd, the transport ministers, this is someone from your own office, the Transport Minister's Chief of Staff took part in a call with the CTA and and Transport Canada Deputy Minister to discuss vouchers. Now, Section 39 of the CTA's Code of Conduct states that members shall not communicate with political actors or officials or of other federal departments and agencies regarding a matter that is, was, or could be before the agency. Just days later, the CTA released its statement on vouchers. Did Transport Canada breach the code?
Mr. Chair, first let me correct myself. I said the investigation is being managed by the Coast Guard. It is headed by Transportation Safety Board. Second, to your question, look, organizations that operate at an arm's length make their decisions independently, but it is common for the Government of Canada to express our priorities to them and to have discussions and consultations with them. It happens with ports, it happens with airports. In fact, I remember NDP was asking me to overrule NAV Canada on decisions that they've made. So it's not uncommon for the public good that Transport Canada has conversations with independent
Mr. Chair,
agencies.
can I cut in? Minister, if I may, the code
Bachrach,
says...
I'm sorry that the time is over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister.
Second round of questioning. We will begin with 5 minutes for Monsieur Luc Berthold. Monsieur Berthold, la parole est à vous.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for our colleagues and the Minister for being here. I'm the member for Lac-Mégantic L'Érable, so I represent Lac-Mégantic where the train disaster happened. This is a number of years later, and I want to thank you for your cooperation. We don't agree with everything, in particular with the obligations that have been placed for truckers crossing the borders. It has created a lot of problems, but we do tend to agree on the importance of this bypass for Lac-Mégantic. Can you tell us what the situation is exactly? Where are we in the project to build that bypass? How are things going? Where are things at with the discussions with landowners? Are the offers acceptable? And will the landowners have enough time and assistance to really study the offers that have been made by Transport Canada?
Thank you for the question. And this is one of the disadvantages of attending virtually. It's hard for me to see who's in the room. And it's nice to see that you're here. Look, I also want to thank you for making sure that you're a vocal voice on behalf of your constituents to ensure that the bypass is built as quickly as possible, safely, very safely, and that the input of community members are taken into account. I've been personally involved in this since I've been appointed Minister of Transport last year. I visited Lac-Mégantic last summer, and I've held several meetings with the mayor and neighboring communities' mayors. I'm glad to report that all landowners who are impacted by the bypass have received offers for their properties. We will do whatever we can to reach settlements with all of the landowners. Also, we are committed to starting the construction as quickly as possible by this spring, early summer, to make sure that the residents of Lac Mégantic see how serious our government is at building this bypass.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much, Minister. I do want to highlight the fact that there is cooperation among all the stakeholders to make sure that this gets built as quickly and as safely as possible. We are all aware that the timeline of 2023 is going to be difficult to respect if we're trying to get these settlements with all landowners. I would like to change subjects, and that is to ask you to talk to your colleagues in cabinet to make sure that there aren't collateral effects of the bypass, because we know that those that are located there have been affected by the disaster. They are collateral victims, if you like, of what happened. So obviously we need to deal with the landowners, but also with the moral damage that has been inflicted. People have lost family members, close friends. Can you talk to your colleagues to see if there can be compensation for these people?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. Again, I'm extremely sensitive to the reality and the impact that not only the tragedy has had on the community, but also the building of the bypass and the impact that it may have on neighboring communities. And I will continue to work with the honourable member, other members of parliament, including members of this committee, including my colleagues. As I mentioned earlier, Minister Bibeau has been providing exceptional support and ongoing conversations with with local community members, with landowners, my staff, department staff. We will continue to listen, to be sensitive to the needs and the concerns of the community and take them into account as we are building this bypass. Because I want to say this, I think there's unanimity in these two aspects. First, that we need to take the local community's input into account. Second, that we need to build this bypass as quickly as possible. Thank you.
And Minister, and if members permitted, just a little, I really need the support of all the members of Parliament to support the community of Lac Mégantic. This was a big tragedy, and I praise everyone to support us in this project, because this is very important for us to go away and to be able to go to another step. So thank you so much for everyone who supported us. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Berthold.
Thank you, Mr. Berthold.
Next round goes to Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Mr. Berthold, I can assure you, you have my support, and Lac Mégantic would have my support. Minister, welcome once again to our Transport Committee. I've served on this committee now for some time. It's always good to see you, and you're always very open to attending the Transport Committee. Last couple of years has been extremely rough on the air sector, and we know that airlines and airports and travelers to small regional airports like the one that I fly into, like Gander, Newfoundland, have been severely impacted with COVID over the past couple of years. So, and I know we've done some great things for these airports to try to keep them viable and to be there after COVID. So can you summarize, Minister, for us some of the work that has been done by Transport Canada and by this government to help support and restart the air sector, particularly in rural Canada and regional airports?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague for his service on the committee. He's a returning member, he's a veteran of this committee, and I've always appreciated his input and his feedback. And as you all know, the transportation sector, I should say the aviation sector in particular, has been one of the hardest hit sectors in Canada's economy. Because of COVID-19, there have been public health restrictions. There have been reluctance on the part of the public not to travel, and a lot of reductions of volumes that have severely impacted the financial viability of airports, airlines, and those who work in those sectors. Our government has been there from day one. We have, as I said in my opening remarks, we have made a total of $11 billion available to the aviation sector. And that consisted of a variety of programs. Some of them investment in our airports for their infrastructure or for their biosecurity infrastructure. Some of them came in rent relief or wage subsidy. We've also offered relief and support to airlines. We've offered support to travelers who needed refunds because of canceled flights or their own cancellations as they were responding to public health advice. So we are talking about a total of $11 billion. Now, obviously, the air sector continues to feel the impact of the Omicron wave. We have, and I shouldn't forget, we have created a working group with the airline sector that included airports, airline operators, unions, to talk about how we can together safely restart aviation and travel. And I was really delighted to be part of the announcement that we made on Tuesday that brought terrific news for those who work in this sector, for those who work in tourism, and for those who wanted to travel.
Thank you, Minister, and so was I, because the tourism sector and the traveling public have had many challenges. Minister, the committee is considering planning to study labor shortages in the transportation sector later this session. So I'd like to ask you, what have you heard in consultation with industry people and labor groups and some of your officials about this particular issue?
Thank you very much for this important question. Indeed, we are facing acute labor shortage across our economy, and that is particularly pronounced in the transportation sector. This was a topic that was brought up at the National Summit for Supply Chains almost 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, and it's been brought up at every discussion I've been having with industry leaders, with union representatives, with business operators, and with my colleagues, with other members of parliament. So I welcome the input of this committee into what policies can the federal government enact to help alleviate the labor shortages. There's work ongoing by my colleagues, by Transport Canada, to figure out what else can we do to do so. But we already have some policies, and if I may, I'll run through them very quickly. It's immigration, making sure that we attract the right type of skills and the right number of immigrants. Daycare, making sure that women are able to participate in higher percentages in the labor force. Tax credit for seniors who were thinking about retirement, but maybe incentivizing them so they can stay in the workforce. But that does not mean that we couldn't look at other measures, and I look forward to the committee's input. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I know I went over time.
Thank you very much, Minister. Mr. Barce-Duval.
Mr. Barce-Duval, you have 2.5 minutes. Please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, Minister, and you've been asked about this a bit already. Not long ago, we had asked at the committee to have access to the correspondence, but there were redacted documents that were provided to it. There was a chief of staff from Transport Canada whose name was redacted, and I was wondering why that would happen.
Mr. Chair, you and the committee members know that as a minister or any politician, we don't get involved in where the redactions occur. Redactions are done based on decisions made by our public service to protect privacy or sensitive information. So I can assure you that there was no political interference in deciding what gets redacted and what doesn't, and that those decisions are made independently.
Je comprends ce que...
I understand what you're saying, but as you can understand, I'm very skeptical. When we look at the reasons that might motivate a name to be redacted, whether we're talking about a minister or a chief of staff, well, I don't understand why that name would have been redacted. We understand the need to protect privacy, but there was a meeting just before the Canadian Transportation Act, just before the decision was made not to reimburse travelers. So I'm uncomfortable with that. Are you uncomfortable with the Chief of Staff having participated in that meeting?
Chair, as I explained in a previous answer, that meetings with federal Crown agencies, independent bodies, happen all the time between government officials or even politicians and ministers to make sure that we ensure that public policy is understood and upheld by those agencies, but they ultimately make decisions on their own. And let me take a moment to say that our government was there for passengers who were seeking refunds. Our government offered refunds to all Canadian travelers who were impacted by COVID-19, so they're able to get those refunds. And now we're working.
Thank you very much, Minister. Unfortunately, the time is up for that round. The next 2.5 minutes goes to you, Mr. Bachrach. The floor is yours.
Chair. Minister, Greyhound provided an interconnected national bus service that connected Canadians from coast to coast across provinces. Now, you've expressed in the past that bus transport is solely a provincial jurisdiction. Do you feel that the provinces can be counted on to recreate a national passenger bus transportation system that is interconnected and allows Canadians across the country to get where they need to go?
Mr. Chair, I know that my colleague has been advocating for this issue for a while. And let me start off by saying I actually empathize with him, with his constituents, and Canadians across the country who are feeling the impact of lack of inner-city bus service. That is why I've written to my provincial colleagues to ensure that we work together, offered the federal government's presence and support to have a national discussion about what can be done about inner city busing. I'm glad and I hope that my colleague agrees with me that it is under provincial jurisdiction. I understand the desire to see a role for the federal government. And for me, my commitment is that I first of all, I acknowledge that there's a need for this service, that many community members feel its absence, but I want to respect the jurisdiction of provinces while at the same time offering support. So I'm looking forward this next week. We have a conversation at the federal provincial council of ministers meeting, and I'm looking forward to a discussion with my counterparts on this and many other issues.
Minister, people across this country are calling on you to articulate a vision for passenger bus transportation that replaces the service that Greyhound provided for decades. This is a service that needs to connect people across provinces, not just within provinces. The risk here is that we end up with a fragmented system where people aren't able to get across the country by bus very simply, because there are simply too many different operators and there isn't that consistency that was once offered. I'm wondering what leadership role the minister is willing to play to ensure that there's a national conversation about connecting Canadians by passenger bus? What leadership is he willing to offer?
Mr. Chair, first let's talk about leadership by ensuring that members of parliament help Canadians and work with Canadians on how the various jurisdictions work and the various level of governments can work together. But my responsibility is to uphold federal government responsibility. And when it comes to leadership on this issue, as I just stated, gladly, that I have written last year to my provincial counterparts on this particular issue to rally provincial ministers along with the federal government to come up with a solution that we can work together on. So I'm looking forward to input from the provincial governments on what they feel the need to work together to address this issue.
Is the minister's vision an interconnected national system that replaces what Canadians enjoyed under Greyhound? Is that the vision that you would bring to that table and communicate to the provinces?
A quick response, please, Minister. Thank you.
Our federal government is highly committed to public transportation. That's why we've committed to $15 billion, the largest in history, to offer and work in partnership with provinces on supporting public transit and public transportation. So yes, we have a vision and we've offered significant investment to provinces to address these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bachrach. And Minister, once again, on behalf of the entire committee, I want to thank you for your time before committee today. I know that you have a hard stop right now, so thank you once again. And instead of suspending members, I think if you're okay, we'll just segue directly into the questioning for the department officials. And Minister, you can now log off if you wish.
Mr. Chair, let me say thank you to you and my colleagues for their question and this important exchange of ideas. And I also say how grateful I am that officials will stay. I'm sure they'll give you much better answers than I could. So thank you, everyone.
Who's that? Okay, colleagues, we're going to go into the questioning of our witnesses, department officials. I just received notice that Mr. Keenan, where are we here? Oh, your mic is a little low. If you could raise it a little bit so that we can make sure that we can hear you. Okay, oh, he's not there now.
Sorry, I believe Mr. Keenan left.
Yes.
Okay, well then we don't have an issue with his mic then. Or any big issue, exactly. All right, colleagues, let's jump into it. I want to make sure that you all have the time to ask the questions you would like to ask to department officials. In this round, we will start off with Mr. Muse. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me... was we out of order? I can defer to my colleague, Ms. Gladu, I think, who was supposed to be next in the round. Let me toss it back to her.
Very good. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the department officials. I'll ask you the question I really wanted to ask the minister. I had been speaking to the minister about the charter rights of Canadians because, you know, they have the right to freely enter and leave Canada, and all of the travel mandates are actually violating those rights. And he had indicated to me that you know, they had the right to do that temporarily because of the pandemic. But on January 21st of this year, the World Health Organization issued new recommendations to end existing COVID-19 related travel mandates. And they said that they do not provide added value and continue to contribute to the economic and social stress experienced by citizens. So with that in mind, I wondered if the department officials can indicate when these mandates will be lifted and the violation of the charter rights of Canadians will cease.
Thank you very much for that question. As we look at, as the minister did say, as we look at the border measures and the posture there, we are mindful and we're informed by the public health situation and the data that's required, and we conduct our own analysis, and we're informed again, by the data of importation and the public health situation domestically and internationally. And all of those measures are rigorously reviewed from a legal and a public health standpoint before they are either made or determined to continue. They're regularly reviewed. And again, yesterday they were adapted and the minister did announce those adjustments. And again, all of those adjustments are informed by public health considerations.
Mm-hmm. And public health officials are calling for these restrictions to be lifted. As you know, 90% of Canadians are vaccinated, but they can still get and transmit COVID. I've had all my jabs and I've had COVID. I know the Prime Minister also is in the same situation. So to have 90% of people that can get it and transmit it freely moving back and across the border, it doesn't really make any sense for 10% to be restricted. And so I hope to see those lifted as soon as possible. Now let's move on to discussion about rail safety. We did have testimony from those that are involved in the investigations of the incidents and accidents on rail safety. And there were some 21 incidents and accidents that had happened in the last 2 years that still don't have a report of what went wrong and what kind of corrective actions should be done. And so I wondered if the department is looking at the resourcing that's applied to those to make sure that we have an adequate resource.
Thank you for the question. And rail safety is a key priority for us. And I think, we've every year we do about 35,000 oversight activities, and we have increased the number of staff that we have by about 42%. I will just pass it over to Aaron to maybe just provide a little bit more context on some of those activities and the measures that we have to ensure that we have safety and some of the funding commitments that have recently been made to bolster rail safety, as well as an update on some investigations.
Yes, thanks, Arun, and thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. As Arun suggested, in fact, I should point out, if I understood the question properly, it's the Transportation Safety Board that actually does the investigations into accidents, but we certainly follow up and do our own analysis of the accident. And a good example is, or even not even an example, another example is when we find something wrong with how a train's being managed, we'll take immediate action and in advance of the findings of the Transportation Safety Board. So an example is when we saw a train unattended in Lagan, we took immediate action to issue an order to require CP Rail to properly secure those trains, to develop processes and procedures to secure those trains, and we issued an administrative monetary penalty because they had failed to properly follow the rules. As Arun suggests,
very good. That's good. I just want to make sure you guys were following up on that. Now I see in the mandate letter that ports modernization is on the list. So I did just want to put in a plug for the Sombra ferry dock that got crushed, as you remember, by the Coast Guard ship and still is not in place. So we've lost a border crossing. We've lost $4 million of economic activity on either side and $4 million of revenue for the CBSA. So don't forget the Sombra ferry when you do your ports modernization. In my last remaining time, I want to talk about airports because we also lost our airport service in Sarnia, and many rural communities across the country are in similar state. Can you describe what the department is intending to do about those concerns?
Yeah, and again, as the minister did say, the recovery of that sector is critically important to us. I think the announcement yesterday of ensuring that all airports are or will be open for international travel is key to that. As part of the recovery efforts, overall there was substantial recovery to the sector. I think $11 billion in total. As part of that, there was $570 million made available for critical infrastructure and capital programs, as well as to support and additional funds, almost $200 million to support regional air service. But let me turn to Serge Benjamin, who's our Assistant Deputy Minister of Policy, to provide some additional information.
Sure. Thanks you, Arun, and I hope everyone can hear me just fine. And it's my first time at TRAN, so I've heard TRAN is made up of very nice people. Just to pick up on what Arun was saying, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's also the Regional Air Transportation Initiative, $200 million. and the Remote Air Services Program, 174 million. So quite a lot of money provided to regional airports to ensure that when the recovery takes place, that their connectivity can remain as per before COVID.
Thank you very much for all your answers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gladue. Mr. Chahal, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for joining us today. I represent Calgary Skyview, and the good movement and logistics sector is an extremely critical to my constituency. And we also have the Calgary International Airport, the CP rail line, and the CN spur line on the eastern edge of my constituency. The government has supported, and I thank you on behalf of Calgary Skyview constituents, the $50 million investment in the Airport Trail expansion project, which was announced, built, and opened over a few years. So that has been a great help to deal with many of the bottlenecks we previously faced. Can you tell me a little more and speak how this fund has helped reduce and prevent supply chain bottlenecks in Calgary and across the country?
Absolutely, and I'll talk a little bit about Calgary. And my apologies if you're getting an echo, as well as other projects as well. And as the minister said, supply chains is very critical and is key to the mandate letter commitment and a priority for the department, for the government. And one of the things that we've done is through our National Trade Corridors Fund is ensure very strategic and critical investment that leverages private sector investment as well that comes alongside to reduce barriers to trade. As you said, the Airport Trail project was approved for $50 million in funding through that. And some of the things that we have seen is there has been an extension between 36th Street and 60th. And I think the remainder will be open soon, as well as other connections to the ring road. Part of what we look for in any of these trade corridor funds is increasing the fluidity of movement to and from from port to destination and to the trade market. And as we continue to do those things, and we have a call for proposal out, as well as there was an announcement with the supply chain summit of $50 million for port investments that will come along fairly quickly to unblock some of the most immediate and pressing concerns that we're seeing with the supply chain at ports.
Thank you for that. And as mentioned, the importance of the trucking industry and workers for my constituency. I can't think, about all the challenges our truckers have faced with the Coots border issues we've faced over the last number of weeks. Happy to hear that the highway is being reopened and it is open to traffic now. I've spoken to many truckers from my constituency, Kilbeer and Ashok, who are stuck at the border, couldn't get through with their trucks full of loads that they couldn't get back to stock those grocery store shelves and provide those essential supplies to our communities and get back home to their families after weeks being away, working and traveling to bring these goods and services to our cities. Can you talk about the importance of these crossings, such as the Coots border crossing, and the importance to Canada and the North American supply chain, and the impact on Calgary and southern Alberta that we've seen with these illegal blockades?
Absolutely, and I'll turn to Serge for a little bit of the specific economic data with respect to Coots. But what we've seen, and the minister referred to economic, $390 million of trade per day at the Windsor Bridge, and we've seen supply chain partners, especially the auto industry, express concern and disruption, and we've seen the impact throughout the Canadian economy. One of the things that we are doing is that we are looking at the impact of these. At each point of critical infrastructure, both at crossings but also at airports, we are maintaining consultations with stakeholders in the rail industry and others, just to ensure that we have a good handle on any disruptions that could imperil or cause an inefficiency to the supply chain. But I'll turn to Serge to speak specifically about the impact on Coutts.
Certainly. Thank you, Arun,
excuse me, sorry,
Mr.
just
Chair.
in 10 seconds or less, please. Thank you.
Certainly. Just some quick numbers. The Ambassador Bridge, the 6th day of blockades, basically stopped almost 400 million of trade flowing each day. So we're looking at about 2.4 billion. Coutts, the 18 days, stopped 48 million on a daily basis, so around 864. Emerson, 6 days, 73 millions of trade usually on a daily basis, which amounted to 438 million. And with Pacific, 3 days, 81 million per day, 243. So we've looked at about 3.9 billion of trade lost or deferred.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Prochainement, on avait M. Barthe-Duval.
We will now go to Mr. Barthe-Duval. You have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, I will ask the member for Mirabel to speak. I want to thank the member for his time. I have a question. I want to speak on behalf of my riding and talk about Synergie Mirabel. The minister promised to help work on this. We're talking about a medium-sized seniors building in Saint Scholastique, and this is an area that was devastated economically with the closure of the Mirabel Airport. We've been working with municipal and provincial officials. Everything is ready to go, but there is still a restriction on building there because of the airport designation. The experts are telling us that there is no danger to people. There is no congestion, and we have not been able to get an answer from the minister, which is inexplicable. So I would like to hear from you about this.
So thank you very much. And I have a little bit of detail, and I can turn to colleagues for that. And I know that there's been substantial work on this facility, and this proposed facility, and work on some of the previous regulations restricting heights of buildings that were in place at the time that the airport was in use. Given that the airport is not in use, those are being re-looked at in context of the proposed building. And again, I can assure you that we are, as officials, working very vigilantly.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do understand. But this is an urgent situation because this project has been it's suspended for a long time. There is no mandate by the airports of Montreal to manage this area. So when can we get an answer? Why have people been turned rather to speak to the Montreal Airport Authority?
And let me turn to Aaron. I don't know if you have any other details on this.
I'm sorry, Arun, I don't. We have a role when it comes to, say, airport zoning regulations that might speak to the height of the buildings, but from a safety and security point of view, we don't have a regulatory role here, I don't think. I apologize.
Thank you. If I still have a little time, how does Transport Canada feel about the fact that this is land that was expropriated, but people now have to go on their knees to be able to build anything? Are people uncomfortable with that at Transport Canada?
So as part of the process of there has been of having that land used for other purposes. We've worked with various groups to return land back to original owners and use it for purposes other than given that it's surplus to requirements.
La zone est déjà construite.
But this area has already been built on, and there is little land left.
Difficile à expliquer pour nous, hein.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garon, and welcome to our committee.
Mr. Bachrach, the floor is yours. You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the officials for joining us today. I wanted to start out where I left off with the Minister, which was this discussion of bus transportation in Canada in the wake of Greyhound cancelling all of its services in the country. And the Minister seems quite adamant that bus transportation is a provincial jurisdiction. What we're talking about here is an interconnected national bus transportation system that allows Canadians to get across the country. And I note that right now there are a number of people across the country circulating a petition asking for the Minister to lead this vision of a truly interconnected national passenger bus system. Now, this matter of jurisdiction, I want to stick to policy here and not politics because I know that's your realm. This matter of jurisdiction is a very interesting one, and I wanted to read from the Transport Canada website a page entitled Governance of the Canadian Transportation System. Now, this is a page on your department's website, and it states that, quote, the roles of the federal and provincial governments are defined in the Constitution Act of 1867. In general, the federal government has the constitutional authority to oversee international and inter-provincial transportation, while the provincial governments are responsible for intra-provincial transportation. Now, assuming that website is still valid and the Constitution is the Constitution, I'm wondering if the federal government were to take up the call of these people who have put forward this petition and involve themselves in the development of an interconnected, truly national passenger bus transportation system, would that not fall within federal jurisdiction?
And hi, Mr. Chair. I'll take on this question and happy to answer it. We'll have to look at it a little bit more. Our understanding is it would still have element of intra-provincial, which would fall under provinces. What you've said is an interesting angle. And it is something that we've been talking about with the provinces for the last 6 months or so. And there's another meeting, as the Minister said, that will take place next week on this specific issue, along with others. And the hope is at the end of the meeting, there is some additional optionalities and potential way forward and things that we could look at.
Well, if I understand the Chair's hand signals and colored piece of paper, my time is up. It does fly by. So I'm not sure I got an answer to the question, but I appreciate the information.
Thank you, Mr. Bachrach. And those 2.5 minute sessions go by quite quickly. Next, we have Mr. Muse. The floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be careful to watch for the colored paper. So let me do as others have done and talk a little bit about some strategic transportation assets that are important to my constituency and my region. And I want to refer to the supply chain task force that was established. The Minister spoke to that following the summit. And, you know, in my region of Hamilton, Ontario, we've got the largest dedicated cargo airport in the country, one of the busiest ports on all of the Great Lakes. It's the 9th or 10th largest city in the country. And from what I understand from conversations with people at the city and as well as the airport and others, there is no direct representation from Hamilton on the task force. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We haven't established a task force yet.
Okay. So I would encourage then some representation because of, again, the largest dedicated cargo airport in the country. We've got CargoJet, Amazon just opened a facility there at the end of January. DHL, which built a year ago, has surpassed what they would have thought would they would achieve in 15 years. So they're well ahead, and they're on their way to establishing a mini hub amongst their North American and global distribution chain. So I would certainly encourage that. So thank you for that. Let me move on then. As well, I spoke to the Hamilton Port Authority and raised. There's a couple points that they raised, and I know that my colleague from Niagara Centre on this committee also talked a bit about the importance of Great Lakes shipping, and that short sea shipping is being used increasingly to move containers. Obviously, there's an environmental benefit to that, which is great. And so 2 points. One is, as the consideration is being made for National Trade Corridor funding, they're appreciative of what has been what's happened so far in terms of Hamilton Port. Again, a very busy port, but encouragement to do more. But perhaps more importantly, the market forces have outpaced the capacity of the regulatory processes and what's happening. And I know this may not be directly an issue for Transport Canada, although indirectly, is the CBSA is not able to handle the increasing container traffic that's happening, and there's a bit of a backlog. So can that be addressed?
Maybe I will start. So as you said, the Hamilton Port has received funding through the National Trade Corridors Fund to expand a pier and for some modernization. It was about $23 million of funding, and again, it is a critical port, and as you said, the region is growing economically, and so again, this is the announcement of funding available and a call for proposal for initiatives to assist ports to relieve supply chain congestion. Maybe I'll turn to Serge for the remainder of that question.
Yeah, sure. And I just want to go back to one point around the task force, supply chain task force. So the supply chain task force has not been established yet. But as the minister also said, that the National Supply Chain Summit was the first event in a series of events. So there will be regional event, and we will ensure that consideration is given to have folks from the Hamilton Airport present at those regional events.
Thank you. I don't see the colored paper yet, so I'll go on. I know it was already been mentioned in terms of allocation to regional airports, and certainly on the question from my colleague, and I want to amplify that importance. Certainly, throughout the past couple of years, there's been more of a, because of the pandemic, a situation where it was sort of reactionary to the events, and good news now that international travel is being reinstated across the country. But there needs to be more collaboration going forward as to what's the pre-plan, the plan for the future, and then that includes removing barriers. That includes investment in airport infrastructure. So I know, for example, at the Hamilton Airport, they're at full capacity right now, and they need that cooperation. There's obviously been identified by others in terms of labor issues, shortages. So all of these things. So in order that we can actually seize those opportunities going forward, because there is that potential, and maybe you can comment a little bit about what that might look like in the next few years.
A quick comment, please.
So happy to jump in. Thanks. We will take it into consideration.
All right, that's quick.
Thank you very much. Next, we have 5 minutes for Mr. Iacono. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bonjour.
Good afternoon, Deputy Minister, and or rather Associate Deputy Minister.
Frappé.
As you know, we have had a lot of announcements and publicity about zero-emission vehicles. We know that the world is changing quickly. Can you give us an update on what the government is doing to encourage and give incentives for zero-emission vehicles?
Sorry, I'm having all kinds of difficulty trying to unmute myself. So thank you for the question. To date, we have provided subsidies. You know, there's a program to provide subsidies of $5,000 for zero-emission light-duty vehicles. To date, we've provided subsidies for approximately 130,000 vehicles over the last couple of years, and there has also been significant investments in charging infrastructure through our colleagues at National Resources Canada on that. Serge, if you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. Just pour rajouter à ce...
I just would like to add to what my colleague has already said. The government, up to now, has invested $660 million to provide incentives for 130,000 Canadians to buy vehicles, and the results are cumulative and add up to 5 megatons of reduced emissions. And given that the transportation sector generates a quarter of our GHG emissions, this is important. Thank you. What have you heard from the industry and other stakeholders about the problems with the supply chain? And what are some of the next steps? Thank you. I can take that question, Arun, if you will. We had a very good meeting. 6 different meetings. Ministers participated. We had some 90 CEOs and chief financial officers involved as well. There are 3 different aspects. So first of all, infrastructure and investment needs. That's something we heard a lot about, and the need to reduce, to address climate change. And then second, the need for investment in other types of infrastructure to increase capacity, to provide for more digital capacity. And third, the need to find ways to cooperate among the various levels of government. So those were the 3 key points that came out of that summit. As far as next steps go, we are planning regional sessions that will be held in late February and early March so that we can involve more stakeholders. And then, after that, we will set up a task force so that we will be able to delve into these various issues and get advice and look at what we can do in Canada to respond to the urgent needs of the supply chain. Thank you. And can you comment on the way that the world shortage of containers has affected the supply chain? Are there aspects that are unique to Canada? Have you done analyses of what has been done elsewhere, including the United States? Yes, we are doing that. We're looking at the global situation. And of course, what is happening in the U.S. is always also happening in Canada. There is a shortage of containers. And this is something that we are looking at very closely today. The Competition Bureau has issued a press release indicating that between Canada and Australia and New Zealand and the U.S., we're going to be working together to address this issue.
Much, Mr. Iacono. Our next round of questioning begins with Ms. Landsman. Ms. Landsman, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks to officials for joining us. I want to ask you, given how serious the conversation right now is in the House with debating emergency powers legislation, I want to know from department officials if you ever considered using the minister's authority in the Bridges and Tunnels Act. He's got emergency powers in that act. It's in Section 17, and I want to know if there was ever a discussion at the top levels to enact the minister's responsibility in that act and clear the bridges.
So as part of our analysis of what the response ought to be to the situation, especially the blockade, all acts and legislation and powers, regulatory and otherwise, were looked at prior to the decision being made, right? And with respect to the Bridges and Tunnels Act, there are specific limitations on that. With respect to the minister's authority, it has to be a threat to the bridge itself, the structure, and therefore what could be done with respect to that authority and the blockade was limited.
So, is it in your view that you couldn't use the minister's emergency authority on the Bridges and Tunnels Act to have any kind of evacuation or any kind of clearance? I just want to know what was discussed at the departmental level.
Yeah. So what we looked at, what the authorities were in that legislation, and the situations where those authorities would apply. And based on our analysis, that there was nothing in those authorities that could be done. The blockade was not on the bridge itself; it was on the access ways, and so therefore the authority provided under the International Bridges and Tunnels Act would not have been effective.
Got it. Thanks. I want to speak to you about travel restrictions, and it's partly is a conversation to give some in the industry who I think have been unfairly targeted with ad hoc restrictions a bit of comfort in trying to understand whether there is any plan going forward to make these to have the department look at travel restrictions in a more cohesive way. I don't think we can have a repeat of Omicron measures in the travel and tourism. I think I want to know from the department whether there's any plan to manage travel restrictions that is not on an ad hoc basis. I want to know if there's any data that you are able to present to the committee that speaks to how you came to the decision to, let's say, keep PCR tests well beyond our allies or our partners. I just want to know who's making those decisions and if it's the department itself.
Well, let me turn that over to, let me say first that there is data that's available. I know that, for example, that we will look by mode at the importation rates, right? The positivity, test positivity, right? And that is one of the factors, as well as the public health situation, as I said before, in Canada and internationally as we establish those measures. But let me turn it over to Aaron and provide a little bit more detail on this.
Thank you, Arun, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. Throughout the pandemic, we've been working very closely both with our partners within government, primarily the Public Health Agency of Canada, who provides the health advice that drives the decisions and measures that get that have been put in place both at the border and domestically, and also with our colleagues, of course, at Canada Border Services Agency that implement. We've been equally working just as closely with the industry itself, and it has been a challenge. The COVID pandemic has evolved rapidly at times in ways that we didn't expect. And so last summer, for example, we started to back off some of the measures. We got rid of temperature checks, for example. We started to open up some of the airports that had been closed to international travel. And when Omicron arose, as the minister suggested, we took actions to ensure the health of Canadians. They had an impact on the aviation industry, to be sure, but we took measures, and now based on the guidance that we're getting, we're easing those measures off. So we're opening up remaining airports and adjusting the testing regime based on the guidance that we're getting from the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Sorry, Ms. Landsman.
Oh, that's too bad. I wasn't looking at the colored cards.
Mr. Fragiskatkos, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm replacing Ms. Koutrakis here, Mr. Chair. I guess you had one Greek on a committee, and now you have another Greek on the committee. So glad to take part, and I'll be splitting my time with Mr. Chahal as well. I wanted to ask officials, and first of all, thank you for your work. I know it's been a particularly challenging time through the pandemic, but into now. Tell me about the harmonization approach with the Biden administration regarding the trucker vaccine mandate policy, the importance of a harmonized approach with our American allies, and how it came to be, how that process was realized, how the outcome was realized, I should say.
So I will pass this on to colleagues, but I think one of the things that we would like to underscore is, or I would like to underscore, is that in all of these measures, one is we are guided by public health, and we also do this in consultation bilaterally, especially in this case with the United States, and in the discussion about truck drivers and the vaccine requirements, those were fully discussed with industry and with our partners in the United States. But let me turn over to Aaron to take that one on.
Thanks, Arun, and thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. These measures have been put in place by our colleagues at the Public Health Agency Canada and CBSA, but the importance of ensuring a mutual approach across the border is to ensure that, for example, travel one way doesn't result in people getting caught on the other side of the border and not being able to come back. So to the greatest extent possible, we have tried to coordinate with partners around the world, but at the same time, we've had to put in place measures that sometimes based on the unique circumstances in Canada, and we do that again based on the science and expertise that is provided by our colleagues within government.
Thank you very much for that. Before I turn it over to Mr. Chahal, I know my constituents in London would want me to ask for an update on the progress of rail in terms of the connection that would see Windsor link to Quebec City. Within that, Londoners were quite excited when Minister Al-Gabra came to London to announce the government's intent to fund rail improvements that would see higher frequency of service and higher speed service provided. Can you just update myself and the committee on where things stand with respect to Southwestern Ontario and Phase 2 as part of the rail policy of the government?
I'll turn that over to Serge, given the limited time.
Perfect. Happy to take this on. And as the minister said, the first phase of procurement will be launched very shortly. So that is going to happen very shortly. And the first phase is meant to address Quebec City to Toronto. Now, for the second phase, Mr. Chair, it is something that's also front and center for us. And I have no doubt that we are in the right path, and the analysis and information and work that we are doing around the Southwestern Ontario corridor is advancing at a good speed. So we're hoping to have some announcement in the near future, but it is definitely part of the plan. And as the minister had said when he went to London and Windsor, it is things that we're looking at in the second phase of the project.
I look forward to that process, and there's a lot of excitement in London surrounding it. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Chahal.
Thank you, colleague. I'm glad my colleague brought up the Emergency Bridges and Tunnels Act, because provincial highways, I guess, don't fall under that act. In Alberta, at the Coutts border, the highway's under provincial jurisdiction, and our premier, Conservative Premier, Mr. Kenney, didn't act or was afraid to act with the illegal blockades. You stated earlier the loss. I can't put a dollar to the loss of the individuals who couldn't get to see their loved one who was dying, stuck in the blockade. The dollar value of the loss, could you restate? You said lost or deferred $3.9 billion, but could you restate what you said earlier at Coutts, Ambassador, Surrey, and Emerson?
Go ahead, Serge.
Just trying to get off mute here. So certainly. So the numbers were just looking at here. So for the Ambassador Bridge, we're looking at 393 million a day, and it was blockaded for 6 days. So around 2.4 billion.
Okay, at Coutts?
At Coutts, we're looking, so it was blockaded for 18 days, and the trade value per day was 48 million. So we're looking at about 864 million of lost or deferred trade.
Okay.
For Emerson.
Yes.
For Emerson, Manitoba, the blockade lasted 6 days, and the trade value per day was 73 million. So looking at 438 million. And there was also the Pacific Highway for 3 days, and the trade value per day was 81 million. For a trade lost or defer of 243 million. So adding these number up adds up to 3.9 billion in trade lost or deferred.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fragiskatos and Mr. Chahal, for those questions. Prochainement, on a Mr.
We will now go to Mr. Barcelou Duval. You have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by asking Mr. Thangaraj about the questions asked by my colleague, the member for Mirabel. Could we have written answers to his questions for the committee, please?
In writing.
Okay.
Another question that I would have for you or your colleagues, whoever can best answer this question, is the following. When I asked the minister earlier about the participation of the Chief of Staff, in fact, Minister Garneau's Chief of Staff at the time, at the meeting that we talked about with the Canadian Transportation Agency, I would like to know a little more about this. Is this something irregular? That is, the involvement of a chief of staff when there's this kind of information, or is this an exceptional meeting?
So as the minister said, as part of the role that we have when we seek factual information and in developing regulations, these types of interactions are regular.
So there's nothing unusual about having a member of the minister's staff attend this kind of meeting.
Okay.
Very well. My next question for you would be, In 2020, almost 2 years ago now, there was a request to the Department of Transportation to protect passengers and make sure that they got refunds. And I want to know where that request is at.
I'll turn that over to Serge.
Certainement, avec plaisir.
Of course, I'm pleased to answer that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, a couple of points. In the Canada Gazette, a couple of months ago, there was a publication, and then it will be republished in the Canada Gazette too. I'm not sure of the date, but that will be coming up. Well, if I understand correctly, what was published in the on the Canada Gazette is the new version of the passenger regulations. Yes, that's part of the process. First of all, Canada Gazette 1 invites feedback, and then it's published in Canada Gazette 2, and that hasn't happened. So we don't have the final version. That will be upcoming, and that will be what comes into effect. Is that correct? Yes. Yes, that is the case. Yes, it will be more final than the first version. Okay, I don't have any more time left, so thank you very much.
Mr. Barcelou.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barcelou.
You have 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd love to try to squeeze in 2 questions, so I'll be as brief as I possibly can. The first one, this committee was copied on some correspondence to the minister regarding noise from general aviation taking place over the city of Montreal, especially tourist flights. And this is something that my colleague, Mr. Boulerice, the MP for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie, hears from residents all the time about. Essentially, these tourist flights are flying over residential areas on their way to the Olympic Stadium or other landmarks, and the noise from these airplanes is causing a major concern for residents of that area. Is the department aware of this issue, and if so, what are they doing about it?
Aaron?
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can take this question. There are requirements at aerodromes around Canada to manage noise in and around the aerodromes. Ideally we prefer that the airport operators themselves manage it locally. I'm not immediately familiar with this particular issue, but there are processes and procedures in place at each airport to properly manage these issues.
Okay, one suggestion that's been made is that the classification of the airspace over Montreal is more relaxed than other metropolitan areas like Toronto, Vancouver, with more allowance for VFR aviation. Do you know if this is the case?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I do not know if this is the case. I would say that the creation of airspace is a complex issue, and yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar with
okay, last question, and I guess this might finish up the committee's testimony for today, but this has to do with interline agreements for airlines. And I met yesterday with Air North. You'll be familiar with them. They're an airline that provides service to a lot of remote communities in the Yukon. They've certainly been struggling throughout the pandemic. And they're also up against these big air carriers that are vertically integrated and really tough to compete with. Now, they've come forward to the minister with this proposal for interline agreements that essentially would provide passengers with an integrated ticket that would essentially, the government would mandate the larger carriers to cooperate with these smaller carriers. And we see in the railway sector and the telecom sector, we see regulations that carve out space for smaller operators, especially ones that serve rural and remote communities. Is this a policy issue, a policy proposal that your department is aware of? And if so, what is your take on it? What's your response?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So we've heard of it recently, and we're right in the middle of studying what this could be or not. So we're early days. It's something that we're studying, and it's something that we are hoping to be able to provide a recommendation to the minister and the government.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask really briefly, is there a timeline on getting back to companies like Air North? I'll follow up at our next opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bachrach, for that for those questions. We now go to Ms. Landsman. Ms. Landsman, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I wanted to continue and just follow up. I understand that the travel policy was is based on advice from PHAC. Do you think the government can do a better job at developing travel policy? For example, I mentioned that most of those measures were ad hoc, and they often rejected that advice. My understanding is that that the travel advice was a level 2, and the government went with a level 3. And I want to know if there's any plans to depoliticize this and give industry, I think, the assurance that they need. That this will be done if it happens again in a less ad hoc way.
So all of our travel advice and all of our analysis is, as we had said, is based on the scientific evidence and the data that we have before us. And so the measures that we have, whether it be testing or travel advice, is based again on the data that we have, on advice from public health officials. With respect to border measures, Mr. McQuarrie mentioned, ensuring the smooth flow of individuals across the border. So it is based on discussions that we have with bilateral partners as well. And so everything that we've done in terms of our border posture and travel measures are based on the science and data that we have before us.
I understand that, but I think you went further than the experts had recommended. So I know that there's Canadians that have lost trust in advisories and are not adhering to them. I know that doctors are openly questioning almost all of those measures. I know that we are well behind, even with lifting the restrictions on PCR testing from some of our allies and some in Europe. So, given that travel is critical not only to our federal economy or provincial economy, it's federally regulated. I just want to know if there's any steps that are being taken to have a less politicized process about travel advice, because I think that the advice that you were given did not match the travel advisories that Canada has.
So when our measures, as was announced yesterday, I believe, all the days are blending together, but all of the those measures are based on advice and evidence that we do have. And so every successive change that we have, whether it be the one that was implemented in the fall as a response to Omicron, or the one that was, a couple of days ago that will take into effect to use a rapid antigen test for fully vaccinated travelers, are based on advice, similar to the travel advice which Global Affairs does in consultation with public health officials. Right? It is done based on the data and evidence that they have in making that recommendation.
Is there? I thank you for the answer. I just want Canadians to know that sometimes the advice doesn't actually match the advisory, because I think your advice didn't match the advisory that came out. So I just want to know if there's a timeline to remove all of the testing. We're seeing some of that in Europe. We're seeing signals of testing being removed from air travel in the U.S. Is there a timeline from the department?
So as I said, we are on an almost constant basis and in real time, we do look at the current epidemiological situation in Canada domestically. We look at and what the appropriate measures are, and again, as was announced yesterday, we adjust those border measures and travel measures based on that evidence. And again, we do that with our colleagues at Public Health and other departments, Global Affairs, for example, and we're mindful of the epidemiological situation, not only domestically but internationally, as we do that. And based on that constant review and based on that analysis, we do make those adjustments, and those adjustments are announced.
Do you consult with with other countries. I'm trying to understand, and I think many have asked this question, why is the science so different in different countries, given that Omicron is here? I just want to know why our measures seem more restrictive than in other countries.
So I don't want to speak for my colleagues at Public Health, but as part of their analysis, they do look at the epidemiological situation in other countries, and there's consultations with provincial medical officers of health as well. So all of those measures that are there and that are put in place are based on full consultations. And again, with our colleagues at GAC and Public Health, they're very mindful of not only the epidemiological situation, but also the measures that are in place internationally.
Thanks for your time. I've been shown the red card, so thank you very much to everyone for preparing for this, given how busy you are.
Thank you, Ms. Landsman, and I'll echo her remarks. Thank you all witnesses, department officials, for being here and answering the questions of the committee today. That concludes our meeting. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.